Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Animation Today. I'm your host, Mark Pudleiner. And, I just want to say really quickly on behalf of Matthew and myself, we just want to say thank you for everyone that's come by our website or our YouTube channel and hit subscribed or hit the like button when you see our videos. And, we started this whole podcast just over half a year ago on January 1st, 2026. And we really didn't have any idea people would like what we're doing here. We're just putting it out there, and if you like what we're doing, it'd be great to hear some feedback, and we're just going to keep going. So anyways, let's go forward with this. Start part 2 with more of the focus on the animation, the design of the creature from the Black Lagoon. This is that monster movie released by Universal Studios back in 1954. And part 1, we ended with this design. This is the original design of the creature. And as noted, the management at Universal, they didn't really like it. And along comes and was hired was Milicent Patrick. And she came into the studio with her design sensibility and her creative ideas. And they really liked the design. And so went forward. This is Chris Mueller, who was the head sculptor. That he did 2 versions. One was for the land version of the film where the actor was a little larger. And then there was a smaller suit that was made and sculpted for the smaller actor doing the water scenes. But this is Milicent Patrick, and her story is really interesting. It's a little messed up, and we'll get into detail about this, but this is her touching up one of the creature's designs here for the shoot. And this is just, as we go forward, this is a quick little, it's 20 seconds long, of showing how the creature itself, they wanted to make it look as real as possible. So it wasn't just a set mask. It actually had breathing gills. And you can see what we're seeing here. You can see it working and how the gills would actually move as it's breathing. This is when the creature attacks, and this is in the movie here. Okay, so this is a book by Mallory O'Mara, and this is The Lady from the Black Lagoon. It's the story of Milicent Patrick. And, Mallory herself, she did a book promo when this book first came out, a promotional tour, and just talks a little bit about how she became an author. She was just a fan of horror movies. Let's listen, really is a quick little video of her discussing how she became an author for this subject matter.
I first discovered Milicent Patrick when I was a teenager and becoming a monster nerd and sort of giving myself a education. Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster. I made my way down the list, and then I found Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I was looking online for behind the scenes photos and trivia, and I saw a photo of a woman working on the creature suit, and it completely galvanized me. It was incredible, and it was the first time I had ever imagined that I could do that too. It's on my left forearm. Is this a good time to show it? I was at a party and was talking to a friend of mine who is a literary
It's actually a pretty cool tattoo. Watch as she turns here. You can see the creature over top of the shoulder.
And I said, this is Milicent Patrick. She designed the creature, but nobody knows where she went afterwards. No one knows what happened to her. And he said, you should write that book. That would be a great book. And I kind of laughed. And he says, no, you should really write that book. The world needs that story.
So giving, Mallory a lot of credit here for, going forward herself and going, let me write a book on something. She wasn't an author, and she went ahead and thought, let me just try this. She gathered all the research. She put this book together, and it really opened the door to a lot of people as far as understanding and knowing and learning about this young artist, Milicent Patrick, that was really very talented, and how she was sort of cast aside and really not talked about for decades. Mallory really did a great thing here by, I think, reawakening this story. So the goal is that Milicent Patrick is a name that everyone knows and not forgotten. So let's go ahead and go forward. I have Frank Dietz, who was an artist, and his wife, Leanne. She was working at Feature Disney as well, both of them when I was there. Frank is, very much is into monster movies and the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and he discusses Milicent Patrick here. I find it's an interesting little intake. Let's go listen to Frank talk about Milicent Patrick.
Well, Milicent Patrick should be very proud because she actually got over some amazing hurdles. Being a woman in a male-dominated business like that, in that part of that industry, being allowed the opportunity to design such an important character. That's really impressive. It's very possible that the reason the creature costume works so well is because it was designed by a woman. Maybe she brought something to that costume that gave it a little more of a sensitive edge. Maybe it's something that's maybe not really tangible, but that's just, underneath the surface, if you'll pardon the expression.
Okay, so I'm going to go back when Milicent was a little kid. This is where she actually grew up for 10 years. She moved to this property, the Hearst Castle of all places, when she was 6 years old with her family, and she lived there for around 10 years. The reason why they moved there was her dad, Camille Rossi, was actually hired to be one of the main contractors and builders and designers on this property. This property was owned by William Randolph Hearst, the publisher. He made all kinds of money, and he was political, and he was part of the Hollywood scene. A lot of the rich and famous people would come to this property as like a summer home over the years. And so Milicent grew up in this environment, really crazy. Now, when she was young, her name wasn't actually Milicent, it was Mildred. And Mildred was a young girl, and she actually connected with William Randolph Hearst's wife, who her name was Milicent. So as Mildred got older and then went forward with her art career and ended up going into Disney, you'll see her name shifted and changed from Mildred to Milicent. And it's out of respect of this young wife that William Randolph Hearst and the connection they had, because they were in the property for 10 years, right? Unfortunately, for 10 years, what happened was Milicent's dad, Camille, was pretty strong-headed and would clash with the other person that was the head engineer that was in charge of the whole castle. And after so many times of disagreements or clashes, he was asked after 10 years, there's some story with a swimming pool and something wasn't done right or whatever, but he was asked to leave. So after 10 years, they had to leave. So the Rossi family had to move to Glendale. They moved back and went to Glendale, California. And that's when her name was still Mildred, but Milicent ended up in Glendale and ended up going to a junior college. She was 17 years old and went to the college. This is a photo of her in the college there. She never ended up graduating the junior college, but she did, with her love of the arts, she ended up making her way to the Chouinard Art Institute. And that's when her life changed as far as going forward with the arts. Okay, so this is Nelbert Murphy, this is when she was very young, 21. She ended up marrying her husband, and he passed away just after 2 years, and she never did remarry. Very sad, but she did continue with the arts, and she was working at this one art school, and she didn't really like how things were going. She decided to go in her own direction, and after, with her husband's last name, the Chouinard Art Institute was formed, and it actually had a really good reputation. Walt Disney, that had just started a studio, and he was looking to have his young artists trained. I mean, people needed to be trained back then. There weren't these schools in animation as there are nowadays. And he would actually had a relationship with this school, and he could go there and pick artists to join his company as needed. And so this is Milicent's path. She was recognized by Walt Disney. Basically, her portfolio, what she was drawing, there was life in the drawings, and there was enough to get her hired. And so she was hired, but it was for the ink and paint department. And as you know, back in the day, the women artists were sort of pushed towards the ink and paint department. And I just want to stop for a sec, because there's this book here by Mindy Johnson. Many of you probably already know it. If you don't have it, it is a huge book. You could use it as a weapon. But it's a great book, and there's so much information in there. And I would recommend everyone to, add this to your art library. It's all about the women of Walt Disney Animation and the past and the history and the opportunities and the struggles as well. So here we are as we go forward with Milicent. She's hired. She's in the ink and paint department. Here's some photos here of the ink and paint early years. There you are. There's the artists doing their, and to be an inker, you had to have beautiful line work. And by the way, there was sort of this, from what I understand, there's unwritten sort of memo, it's sort of understood the men stay away from this department. That was sort of the known thing. So in regards to female animators at the studio, Rhetta Scott here, she was really recognized, I think, as the first female animator at the studio. She did in-betweens on Bambi with the character. And now Milicent also was animating, but she was doing effects. And this is part of her work here on the movie Fantasia. There's, the pastel effect where she would take the brushes, and it was really, beautiful effects, shifting and moving through the scenes. She also worked on Chernobog, the character, Night on Bald Mountain. Very cool projects for this young artist, as the effects would be swirling around the character. Now, Milicent also, wasn't just the arts, which she, got recognition. She was making her way up. She also loved being in front of the camera. So she was a very pretty lady. She loved to model. This was part of her work here as she's modeling. And she would be in an extra. Like, she was an extra. She would be in the background in live action movies. She loved that. And this is her right there, as in the movie The Reluctant Dragon. So this is when they're going through. There's Wooly Reatherman. He's reading the script. This is The Reluctant Dragon. There's Milicent right there as they're going through. Now, I have a really brief video here of the man. There's a Disney lot. You recognize it way back when, 1941. And now there's Milicent right there. And then he crashes as he, and there she is right there. So, small little roles. Hey, mom and dad, look, I'm in the movies, right? Because everyone's paying attention to what's going on here, but still very cool. And she loved that. She loved not just drawing, but she loved with her acting. And as she went forward, unfortunately with Milicent, she was part of the whole strike. She suffered from migraines, and then there was issues, and there's also just the whole strike that happened. She was let go. She was one of the layoffs of the strike, but she did continue on with her modeling. Here's another shot, and this is her playing an extra. And this was at Universal, where it was probably a Western. This is after Disney, so she was still finding roles, background characters in the background. When you're in an extra in the movies, you have a lot of time to kill. You're waiting until they're going to shoot that shot. So she, as an artist, should be drawing her co-actors and just be sketching. And one of the guys at Universal Studios walking by noticed her drawing and saw her drawings, and his name was Bud Westmore. And Bud Westmore was part of the Westmore dynasty. Back in the 50s, basically every major studio had there was 5 sons, had one of the sons was in charge of the makeup department. Their dad, way back when, he actually started the whole makeup department in the studios. It used to be where the actors would do their own makeup. Well, their father said, let me be in charge, and I will put the makeup on properly for the actors. Anyways, so that industry was built and created by their dad. So here we are. And every year they would come out with this Westmore beauty book, which would tell, there it is there, tell women about beauty and glamour and even how to be with their personalities. This is back in the 50s, right? There's Betty Davis, like how to put on makeup, what glasses you have to wear. So that was the book that came out. And then this is Bud Westmore here with Milicent after he hired her. And he saw her abilities and said, I need someone to help out, because the makeup department wasn't so experienced with, creating creatures. And now they were being asked by the studios, by Universal, we need some creature makeup being done. And so he saw Milicent's work and said, maybe you can help. And she did. And she actually helped. Her first movie that she was involved with came with designing and helping make, it came from outer space. And this is the alien that they created. This is a short little movie here. I'll show you. This guy walks in, and it's basically a floating eyeball. He's looking in, and he's talking to this, and this is what the creature looks like.
The people of your world and ours. For if we come together, there will only be destruction.
I've got to see you as you really are. Come out, or I can't take the responsibility.
So building that tension, right?
Very well then. You asked to see this, so you shall.
It's a big floating eye. But back in the 50s, intense. There we go. And there you go. That that was Milicent's first creature project, then went forward.
I mean,
and cool. I got to say, this is Rick Baker again talking with Joe Rogan, and he's talking about the design of the creature and Milicent Patrick. So let's listen to Rick explain the little bit of politics going on here.
Design, right?
It is, and it was designed by a woman, Milicent Patrick, who...
She nailed it.
She did, but she didn't get a lot of... Bud Westmore's regime got the credit for it. But when the movie came out...
Look at that.
Yeah. When some publicists found out that a woman designed it, they did a whole kind of Beauty and the Beast campaign, and apparently Bud Westmore was furious. He goes, "It's my work." It's
Oh no.
And he was famous for posing with other people's stuff. There's some pictures of Bud Westmore holding a really inappropriate sculpture tool next to the sculptures. And from what I heard, he would. Whenever the publicist would come to take pictures, he'd give everybody a day off or the afternoon off, and then he would go up to the lab and pose with that stuff.
Oh, Christ.
But that's the way it was. So Bud Westmore taking all the credit. Now, the Beauty and the Beast, there it is right there. Milicent Patrick stands for a mirror with one of her creations. Unfortunately, there she is drawing. There she is with the beast. With the work that she's doing, and they really promoted it, there she is with some masks. The problem is that Bud Westmore did not like the publicity that she was getting. This was meant to be about him. He was in charge. And so he called her back in from the tour and said, "You're going to no longer be known as Beauty who created the beast, but the Beauty who lives with the beast." So Bud Westmore, wanted to make sure that everyone thought that it was Bud Westmore. He was the guy in charge. And Milicent signed the papers. She made more money, but signed the papers. And then she went back on publicity tour, and Bud Westmore still couldn't handle it. He ended up calling her back to the studio and firing her. He was let go. And to this day, she never again worked in special effects makeup for the studios, which is really sad because she loved it and she was so good at it. But all because of Bud Westmore and his ego, and he couldn't handle that she was getting the recognition. It happens, right? So anyways, going forward, this is, an article here, A Woman's New York, Meet a Hollywood Beauty spends her time with the monsters and loves it. It's all about, this is one of the articles. She says, her quote is here, which is, "Let the other gals have Hollywood wolves," says Milicent. "I'll go along with my monsters, thank you." So that's one of her quotes that she said. Like Bud Westmore, right? Like killing her career because he couldn't handle it. How often does that happen? On both sides, men and women in Hollywood. So now what I did find out is with Glendale, California, I was wondering, because I lived in Glendale, California, myself and Matthew and his brother, and our house was there in the Verdugo Woodlands area, right near the Glendale Community College where Milicent went. And I was looking up back in the 35s and going, this is when they moved to Glendale, and I found where they lived. There it is. There's Camille. This is her dad, Rossi. So, and there's Mildred right there, Mildred, art student. And it's 1455 East Broadway. And so if I go into Google Maps and I type it in right there, 1455 East Broadway, there you go. And what I find interesting here, let's go here, is if I look around, there's the building right there. 1455 is an apartment building. And what's very cool about it, just for the history of Glendale, this is 1455 East Broadway. But there's the building. So that's where Milicent moved when she was, 17, going to the Glendale College. But what I find interesting is that right across the street, it's a Glendale High School, which is pretty cool for the Glendale High School to know that the young artist, Milicent Patrick, literally lived right across the doors and she was the one responsible for the design of the creature of the Black Lagoon. That's very cool. Anyways, we're going to go forward, and I have some animation to show you, and let's continue on. Okay, so this is the animations part of the episode, Creature from the Black Lagoon, starting from the 54 movie. And the very first animation that they had was actually in 1967. This feature came out. It was in the theaters. Mad Monster Party. What's cool about this poster here is it was drawn by Frank Frazetta. And there's another one here, more vertical. But this movie was from Rankin and Bass, the studios, and it was that stop motion style. This is the title, Mad Monster Party, and it had all the classic monsters, Dracula, werewolf, etc. And then it had the creature, and there's a creature there. So it's of course very limited in style. I'll show you the animation here. And you'll see the creature on the table. There he is on the left. And then there's another moment here where the creature gets smacked in the face. So you can tell, it's limited, but it's in that style that we know and, of course, love for that very simple stop motion style. Anyway, so there you go. Let's go forward. The next TV special they actually had in 1972 was a Mad, Mad, Mad Monsters. And this was hand-drawn. It was the cell animation. And this, I'll show you this quick little moment here with the creature. It's very stylized, 1972.
Mad, mad, mad monsters. All your favorite film monsters in a special cartoon feature. Frankenstein, Dracula.
There you go. And there it is. That's pretty well right there. There's the creature. That's all I was able to sort of find with that design there. So going forward with the timeline, this is 1980-85. It's a Scooby Doo Mysteries. And this is the intro, and you'll see the design of the creature.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, looking for you.
The classic song, of course.
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
Anyways, all these monsters go running by.
They're not gonna...
There. Here they go. There's the creature design there. And then I think also at the very end, I think we see the creature again. There he is, as they're doing a dance. All right. Limited stuff. Scooby Doo. That's why we love it. So, by the way, Scooby Doo had, various episodes, and this is some more. They never had the creature. It was sort of a copyright thing, but they had their variations of what they designed the creature to sort of look like. So it resembled the creature. There's the one. There's another one. This is from a TV movie. And then this is later on here, some more creature designs for Scooby-Doo. Now, going forward, now we're heading to really jump forward to the 2009. This is DreamWorks production of Monsters vs. Aliens, The Missing Link, this design here.
Here we have The Missing Link. A 20,000-year-old frozen fish man who was thawed out by scientists. He escaped. Went on a rampage.
So there you go. There's that design. The Hotel T designs. This is the Gill man here. Let's take a look. So they're basically sort of background characters. They're just minor characters, but they showed up ever since the very first Hotel T, 2012 and onward. They showed up as these sort of secondary characters. This is one, Marty Gilman. That's the design here. And this is part of the animation of one of the Gillmen dancing away, a dance loop. There you go. So that's what it looked like in the Hotel T movies. In their TV series, Hotel T, this is Dr. Gilman. This is a TV series that went from 2017 to 2020. And that was the design. Now, this is pretty funny. This is 2013's episode of Robot Chicken Adult Swim series, and this is the episode called Eaten by Cats, and this is the creature or the Gill man, and let's just watch it play out here for a little moment.
Berry is part of this nutritious breakfast.
Hello.
Frankenstein's got his own cereal?
I take it you haven't seen the Count Chocula commercial?
Shut the up! Oh, hang on a sec. Hello?
Who do they think they are?
I know. You're watching the Frankenberry commercial, right?
So, I mean, they're all complaining anyways. Really funny stuff. Robot Chicken. Okay. So, and then later on, this is like 2010, 2016 TV series, Monster High series. And this is the 2D series that was the first series. They did a 3D series after, but this is Gill and Laguna, the characters. And then later on, this is 2022-24 3D series, the Monster High series. And this is Gill and Laguna. So, okay, back again to the creature poster. And, you know, that's part of the animation that I found. You know, there isn't too much, but it goes back from the late 60s to, you know, to recent years with the 3D stuff. So anyway, so we will go forward into part 3. That will be the next episode. And so we just want to, again, thank you for joining us, and we will continue on.